Okay, so as Bernie mentioned, I'm based in Dublin, so if any of you are passing through Dublin on your way back, if you're staying the weekend or whatever, you're more than welcome to pop in and have a little cup of tea and a chat. But my role is today to inspire you to start thinking about what you're doing locally in your country, and I guess to showcase Ireland Inc. as a country that is really pushing this agenda, trying to think creatively and innovatively around engagement and the university's role and responsibility in terms of engaged teaching and learning. But Campus Engage also works across engaged research. So working with the EU Commission, the Irish Research Council, Science Foundation Ireland, the national contact points for the EU Commission, Academy, etc., focusing on engaged research. And we've worked specifically with Professor Maura Adset on that initiative. But today it's all about Irish innovations in engaged teaching and learning. So what are we doing? We're implementing, Ireland is in a lucky position that we have strong policy in terms of engagement, okay? So it's quite unique globally. We have thought leaders and we have visionary people in positions within political structures that see benefit and potential societal impact from having a strong engagement remit within institutions. Of course, policy documents are one thing, implementing policy is a whole other practice. So our gig in Campus Engage is to implement national policy. So just to mention that we work cross-institutional. So Campus Engage is based in the Irish Universities Association, which is a very important issue, and I'll get to that later. So what are the national contexts and drivers for change? So I've just popped up on the screen here a number of documents that are driving our initiative, that's giving us a reason and a remit to exist and push this agenda. Okay, so I'm trying to ask you to think nationally, not institutionally, okay? So this is what is driving our agendas at a national level. So we have, first and foremost, we have the 2030 National Strategy for Higher Education. And section 2.4 of that asks institutions to consider their engagement role and to respond to the needs of the community and the environments they work with through engaged teaching, learning, and research. In addition, we have the Irish National Skills Strategy 2025, which again calls institutions to think about graduate attributes. We have Sarah Moore in the audience here. UL has an excellent graduate attributes strategy, and each institution needs a graduate attributes strategy. It's putting in place a pathway to getting the correct work-ready skills that graduates need to transition into workplaces. So it's a really fundamental piece of policy. In addition, we have our National Science Strategy, and that also asks higher education institutions to think about how they're inspiring students and researchers to work with civic society on big research topics, big grand societal challenges. In addition, we have a various number of funding opportunities. So the Irish Research Council, Wellcome Trust, Science Foundation Ireland, of course Horizon 2020, all offer funding to drive these types of initiatives, engaged research, engaged teaching and learning. Horizon 2020 SWAF's call, Science with and for Society. There is a number of very successful initiatives in Ireland working with global partners on responsible research and innovation. To name a few is UCC, DIT and DCU. There's been millions of euros invested in developing training programs and initiatives to get teaching and learning staff to think about how they are investing in students, investing in their curriculum to produce socially conscious researchers through the curriculum. Okay, moving on from that slide. This is the governance model for Campus Engage, okay? So our remit comes from the higher education institutions, okay? So this is important, right? What is the infrastructure that helps us to exist, okay? So how do we get decisions made around budget, resource, projects, plans? Each of the presidents, so AIEA is the Irish Universities Association. The presidents come to meet here monthly of the 7 universities, only 7 universities in Ireland, and they make strategic policy and practice decisions. So I'm located in the building where they meet, okay? So I can sneak onto their agenda from time to time. But ultimately, they nominate a person to sit on our steering committee, and here's where we do the strategic planning and make decisions about budget and different activity plans. And Bernie Quinlan, here in the front row, sits on that and represents UL, and she is phenomenal, just to put that point of information in. We also work with DIT and the Higher Education Authority. Okay, so the Higher Education Authority, Head of Engagement, Vivian Patterson, sits with us quarterly and helps us to decide helps us to work and strategize on what we're doing nationally. And then my role is to really entice and support 4 working groups to produce product and service. Okay, so initiatives that are going to support student graduate outcomes, support research outcomes. So we have 4 working groups: Engaged Research, led by Maura Adsted and Sarah Bowman, Trinity College; StudentVolunteer.ie, which is an online tech for good, and Match.com for students working within the community through volunteering activity. What we're going to speak today about is community-based learning and research, which is all about bums up off seats, working with community partners for accredited activity, student activity, and then a metrics and evaluation working group, which looks at what is the impact of all this stuff. So why bother? So these are all our fabulous presidents. So the metrics and evaluation working group put together led by Ronnie Monk from DCU and the fabulous Rhonda Wynne, who is in the audience today, a 10-point charter that each of these fabulous presidents signed up to. They came together in Dublin Castle and signed up with the then minister. We will commit to engaged teaching. We will commit to engaged research. We will commit to infrastructure and resource. Because without that, forget it. It's propping up computers, or it's redundant. You need resource to do this stuff. So they've committed to this, which is phenomenal. There's the old Dan Barry, who was the ex-president of UL. He was a real champion for this space. So that's that. And in addition to this charter, there is a set of indicative actions. So again, with Rhonda's insight, Rhonda did her PhD in this space, a list of 10 priorities was drafted, but indicators or key performance indicators to each of those 10 points was drafted, okay? So by putting numbers and stories to impact. And these indicators, a number of them, have now transpired into national policy. And I'll click on that. Here we go. So, to universities' delight, the Higher Education Authority and the department is asking institutions to now collect evidence or data on what they're doing across research, teaching and learning, access, internationalization, and engagement, okay? So it's phenomenal how these things, how they get in here, but they're in here. So the department see the importance of this, and they see the vision for higher education institutions to be engaging through the curriculum, through research, teaching and learning. So these are the things that institutions need to be actually collecting data on now. So the proportion of programs that provide curricular options for socially engaged research or learning, proportion of staff engaged in socially engaged research, proportion of students engaged in socially engaged research, proportion of staff involved in community-based learning, etc. Okay, so this is, while a hindrance to institutions, it is phenomenal because they're going to be able to go to that data and show their societal impact. You know, it's going to be brilliant for PR campaigns and positioning them at a global level for funding applications. We're also trying to work with Times Higher and other ranking tools to get this stuff into the ranking instruments, because this is really important down the future, we believe. So our definition of community-based learning, aka service learning, it's very simple. It's community-engaged learning and research are academic approaches that seek to engage and accredit students within the curriculum for working in partnership, fundamental word, with civic and civil society organisations to act on societal challenges. So again, back to the infrastructure. Okay, I'm really going to focus on this. So Campus Engage, my role is a support tool. It's a support infrastructure for each of the universities that we work with, okay? So we are in a really lucky position that each of the universities across Ireland have an equivalent of UL Engage, yeah? So that is quite impressive. I think we're kind of global leaders in that space. UK is really well positioned. America is well positioned. Some of our European friends and colleagues, Australia are quite advanced. And this has all come about over the last 4 to 5 years. So we have Trinity Engagement Office, the UCC, Academic Community Links, led by Catherine Mahoney, who's a great woman down there in UCC. The Community Knowledge Initiative, John O'Halloran is the Vice President for Teaching and Learning, now registered in UCC, and he's got behind that and really driven it. the Community Knowledge Initiative in Galway, University College Dublin in the community, UL Engage, and DIT students learning with communities. So across this spectrum, there's up to about 40 or 50 very active, positioned institutions, people positioned in institutions who work at a national level to inform those products and services that Campus Engage provide to scale up this activity nationwide and to position Ireland, most importantly, as leaders in this space. So what we did back in 2014 is we'd have a big national call out to over, I think, about 1,000 emails asking, trying to find out who does this stuff, who does community-based teaching and learning well nationally. So we have this list of individuals who are really expert in it, and they do it on a day-to-day basis. It's their bread and butter. They write about it. They present at conferences about it. And this working group has turned in, or this list here has turned into a national working group, and it's been led by Bernie in the room and Claire MacDonald from DIT. There's two funding calls that Campus Engage could approach. One is Science Foundation Ireland is a national initiative. It receives millions upon millions of national revenue, taxpayers' monies to position STEM, science, technology, engineering, maths. So each of the Science Foundation Ireland funds centres and really the cream of the crop Irish researchers. But they have a funding call to support teaching and learning and other initiatives, public engagement initiatives and teaching and learning initiatives called the SFI Discover programme. And also Sarah Moore led still does, the National Forum for the Enhancement of Teaching and Learning. And that's a TNL, and they also had a series of funding calls that you could apply for to get funding in to support national innovative teaching and learning initiatives. So we're grateful for that, Sarah. Now, so in 2015, we launched this working group launched the Campus Engage Participate programme, and this was all about building 21st century global graduate attributes for transferable work-ready skills. Okay, so so many different programs can put their title to that. But it's really about upskilling, capacity building, competency building of teaching and learning staff to look at their curriculum and change it and adapt it to incorporate community-based learning activities into the programme. Okay, so this is quite a technical thing to do, and you need expertise and you need support from those who already do it. So the offer of this training programme was to give easy introductory how-to guides, copies. We gave case studies, implementation plans. This is really fundamental. The how piece. Learning outcome assessment techniques, sample learning agreements between higher education and community partners, evaluation plans, and this access to a national community of practice. So like a team or an army of people who want to work with you, you have access to this kind of group of experts. So this is a quick flick of the e-invite that we sent out. But the reason I'm showing you this is because to get this call out across each of the institutions, but to get noticed, yeah? So as you are all aware, hundreds of events take place in universities on a weekly basis, yeah? A little gathering here, a colloquium here, and they go unnoticed. So you have to think strategically. So get on to the president, say we need you to get behind this, we need you to champion this initiative. So they all agreed, and then it filtered down to the head of teaching and learning, and they circulated the invite across campus, okay, depending on which campus we held the training on. This was one in UCD. So what are the expected impacts? What are the expected the effect of this training programme? What did we want to see happen? We wanted to see, as mentioned, staff capacity building in this space, educational practice change, higher education institutional policy change, obviously societal change. For students, we want to see these 21st century graduate attributes of teamwork, effective communication, global citizenship, empathy, problem solving, leadership, social entrepreneurial skills. And we chatted to some of the amazing students out the front yesterday and asked them, what is, can you describe to me how this has affected you or changed you? And what are the skills? How do you see this will affect your transition into other workplaces? And some of this is what they were spontaneously coming up with, which was quite reassuring. There was a question yesterday from the gentleman in the second row there about outcomes, and how do you measure outcomes and how do you even begin to think about outcomes, what effect you want to see through educational programs, etc. And this is one tool that Campus Engage uses to start thinking about how we collectively think about impact, how we collectively work with our partners. And it's called a logic modelling approach, which is these technical terms, but we really promote this, especially in terms of engaged research when you're going for big funding applications, but equally as an institution when you want to come together to get different perspectives on the type of impact you want to see happen, fundamental, because that's about collective buy-in. So what logic modelling does, it asks for teams of stakeholders to come together to think about the situation. What is the situation at hand, and what are the issues that we are addressing? The next step is to ask that collective group of people to see, what do you want to see happen? What's the effect, the change that you want to see down the line? And this might be a longitudinally measured change. What are the inputs? What are the activities that need to take place? What are the outputs that need to be delivered? What are the outcomes, the shorter term change that needs to happen for those longer term impacts? This all needs to be underpinned by excellent science, so basing it all on an evidence base, so using the literature, existing literature, using consultation, etc. And then it needs to be monitored and evaluated, and you need to think about the resources. The implementation is all about resource and activity, and results are short, medium, and long term. So in greater detail, the situation analysis, okay? So in your institution, there is a big, there's a thirst to do this, yeah? So we've got to think about, what are our challenges? What are our enablers? So what are the socioeconomic factors? What policy exists institutionally, nationally? Legislation, what funding? What are the internal politicking? What are those local conditions? So we need to write these all up. What are the needs? So what's the demographic? What do they want? What does the target groups want? What do our students want? What is the problem that we're trying to solve? And what is that about kind of poor graduate attributes, etc.? What's the current provision of any existing services or strengths or weaknesses? And then we talk about the impact that we want to see. So this is, you're all together, you're around a table and you're consulting with each other. Well, ultimately, we want to see higher education and CSO leaders making community-based learning a strategic priority. We want increased numbers. This is a numbers and stories impact. No numbers without stories, no stories without numbers. An increased number of CBL training courses for staff, higher rated graduate attributes, work-ready skills, rated by employees. Increased funding income, increased social capital for students, lectures, community partners, increased number of social enterprises spun out from various initiatives, public empowerment through partnerships and participation, readily available evidence of impact, new innovative practice or innovative products and services or practice within community settings. Okay, so all the ideal situations, circumstances. Anyway, so what are the inputs that need to happen? What are the resources? So we need staff, funding, buildings, technology, equipment, partners, institutional supports. The outputs are the deliverables, so it's what we'll do. The activities are the work packages and the actions. Outcomes are the shorter term, things like knowledge and skills change, attitudinal, behavioural change, and you can measure this stuff, and change in local situations, circumstances, all underlined by evidence and monitored and evaluated. Okay, so this is just a tool that I would recommend you guys use. I can give you all the literature and support. We have this all of this is online and available to you, but if you want to bring together the thought leaders or the institutional change makers, budget holders, aka, in your institution, use this tool to bring them around the table. Get in touch with your decision makers. So in addition, we also launched a national mentoring or consultation service for staff mainly who are new to this game and wanted to talk out issues they were encountering or problems. So it's the Campus Engage hotline. So Bernie was one of those very generous individuals to give their time. Now there wasn't a huge uptake from it, yeah, but it was an offer for those who actually did the training. So it was a really nice kind of community of practice. So a national community practice. This is quite unique in Ireland, where you get universities actually not competing all the time, but working together collectively, because they could all see the national general benefit of this stuff. So that worked to a certain degree. But this is just a quick flick of all the different how-to guides that we have up online. So it covers the policy, the ethics of community-based teaching and learning, really important, community-based research and practice. So they're just a series of guidelines. They're all up online. You're welcome to use them, copy them, make them your own. We also developed, through the help of the National Forum for the Enhancement of Teaching and Learning, a series, not only those documents, but also a series of videos. So we have an online training support. It's 4 videos, which are semi-professionally done. We did our best, but they give their step-by-step through the programme, so you can access those at home from the comfort of your own living room. So ultimately, what did we achieve? So the National Capacity Building Training Programme was delivered to over 500 higher education institution educators and CSOs. So we covered all of the universities, but we also covered all of the ITs of technology. Okay, so there's 23 of those institutions. All of the signatories to the Campus Engage Charter. The Participate programme or spin-offs of have been presented over 10 conferences internationally. And this is the list of the kickstarts that we call them kickstart training programs across the country. So we have another one coming up, actually, a bit of a think-in with CSOs on Tuesday. And this is just some shots from UCD, Maynooth, Trinity, of the, so it's, we put out the e-invite, and because we put it out through the leaders, the vice presidents for XOR Teaching and Learning, within 24 hours, 48 hours, we had, the capacity was full. In UCD, we had to bring in more chairs, and it was quite inspiring. With the Dean of Science distributed actually across UCD, and very smartly, there was a full house. And then, of course, it's fundamental that we're actually evaluating what we do. So we tried to do, this is the workshop, evaluating the workshop offer. So evaluations incorporated into the start and the end of each workshop. So we'd asked participants to think about what they want to get out of it, and then at the end we would evaluate what they felt they actually got out of it, and then we'd adapt the programme each time to make sure we were hitting those key needs of the educational staff. So this also, it's building an evidence base for the qualitative and quantitative outcomes and the usefulness of the programme. The specific questions looked at your expectations, what was most helpful, and how we could improve it. Here's our UCD colleagues and Bernie in action in UCD. And of course with Professor Don Barry, and our community partners from the Centre for Universal Design, and I think that's Enable Ireland. And this is a little video. I thought, I probably don't have time, but I'll do it anyway. But it's a very brief video on the programme.
The Campus Engage Participate programme is a one-day workshop incorporating interactive sessions aimed to develop the capacity of higher education teaching staff and members from community groups and organisations to develop their capacity to design and implement community-based research opportunities and teaching opportunities into their curricula.
I got so much out of the Kickstart programme. It was a really intensive workshop that just gave me the tools to incorporate community-based learning into my own modules. So it's going to allow me to accredit my students while they're putting those real-world skills into practice.
Community-based learning is a collaboratively designed project between students and an underserved community, which is designed to meet the learning needs of the students and also the goals of the community.
It is incredibly satisfying to me as an educator to see the joy in the students' eyes when they actually, after all of this work, and it's a lot of hard work.
Enable Ireland got involved in community-based learning a number of years ago because we recognised that while we were working really well, we hope, with individuals and young adults who were using technology, we knew that there were lots of ways in which that technology could be improved.
So what we did was we were going out into the community, we were asking real people about their real world problems, and then we were taking those real world problems and hopefully solving them with our engineering designs. So I feel it can certainly give people a bit of a step ahead of their peers, but also as well, it can prepare them for the real world engineering workplace. Because essentially we're doing real world engineering in college.
Well, in my career as a social worker, it will be my role to engage with community members and be an advocate on their behalf. So this project dealing with community members was especially applicable to that. It allowed me to utilise an academic purpose for an advocate purpose and to benefit a community through an academic task.
What our students do, or the community-based learning allows students to do, is to deliver on a promise and present something which is actually ultimately going to satisfy a need and benefit the community.
I was very lucky as a student to have the opportunity to actually make use of some of my skills and learnings from civil engineering with a locally based NGO in Galway. To me, it was a real eye-opener. The notion that my education was more than just about getting me a job at the end of it. It was about teaching me a way to think, getting me to understand how you can solve problems and applying them in a real-world context.
Just do it. Just get stuck in. Just talk to any colleagues that maybe have been involved before, and obviously just go and visit the Campus Engage website. There's lots of useful information on it, but definitely if you do it you won't regret it.
So that's just a very brief introduction to this national initiative, and I cannot emphasise enough how we are so dependent on the skills and the expertise from local institutions, because that is where the knowledge, the insight comes from to inform the content of these initiatives. So other findings, so all together, okay, so this is updated since the Trinity initiative. There's 560 staff, 60% STEM, 40% arts, humanities, social science, and the leadership piece is really fundamental to the effectiveness of this stuff, so actually getting people trained up, getting people involved and having that leadership behind it. As I mentioned before. So challenges, I think what's really important in these sessions is we're not just talking about how fabulous it all is and echo chambering, how great it is. There's huge challenges to this stuff. Like, it's really hard work. Bernie will tell you that to get out and make those partnerships, make those connections is, it's about trust. Building trust. It takes time to build trust between a community partner and institution. It's about emotional intelligence. It's about diplomatic skills. It's about really clear listening. What is the need? Why bother? Why will I bother if I'm a community? I've come from community-based organisations before I joined AIEA, and you are flat out trying to survive. So why will I bother working with the higher education? What's in it for me? So to listen and make sure you're meeting those demands. It's really scaling up the offer to students across disciplines, across campus. It's really important that the people that are working on it at a local level within the institution are looking way beyond maybe their immediate discipline. They need to be talking with the really hard to reach mathematicians. Say, we just do maths and this doesn't relate to us, because it does. Mentioned trust, insurance issues comes up. There are instruments and methods to overcome those. Ethical considerations in terms of how the research is used. There's a wonderful case down UCC. Mental health. They were working with the Minister for Mental Health and how this one student's initiative is a really hot topic at the moment. If anyone's listened to the news, and Irish young people's mental health issues. And anyway, they had phenomenal impact. They were in front of a joint Oireachtas committee, and their policy briefing from their research actually made changes to a strategy document that was in development. However, it's still a big issue in Ireland. So there we go. There's more recommendations. We're all ears about what we need to do. And then there's a list of things that worked within the training programme. But let's not look at what worked. We need to look at what didn't work and improve. So that's it. That's just a brief overview of what... it's a brief overview of Ireland Inc. and what we're doing nationally to drive this stuff. And it's also about recognising the, on paper, leadership at a governmental level, at an institutional level, is really supporting this stuff and getting behind it and sees the vision, and sees the importance. This is about need and it's about responding to demand of students that, the dropout rate of students within universities is quite phenomenal in Ireland. I don't know if it is most likely the same in all countries. Some institutions are affected more than others, but we truly believe that this is one way to keep bums on seats, keep students engaged, keep them from dropping out, and to applying their skills that they've learnt through textbooks. So that's it. That's just a quick showcase. I'm going way over time, have I?